Do you ever feel like you're going crazy? Like you're kind of losing it? Like you're going out of your mind and you don't know what to do? Sometimes our thoughts tend to spiral out of control, especially in times where there's crisis or things going on in the world that we can't control. And one of the things that I learned after being sober for 6 years is that sometimes we just can't control the direction our thoughts go. But we can control what happens before they get to the breaking point. And today what we're going to do is talk about mental health cleansing. Now that sounds like a weird cult-like thing that's kind of freaky, but actually what it is being at the door of your mind and guarding what happens. Recently, with all the stuff that's been going on in the media and all the crazy stuff that's going on with the lockdown and viruses and all the stuff that's going around, I find myself kind of drawn to things that I used to be drawn to. For example, when I was about 20 years old, I was a street preacher. A lot of people don't know that about me. But I used to preach on the street corner to hundreds of people who didn't want to hear what I had to say. And back then, I was prone to be looking at conspiracy theories. I remember years ago, back about 20 years ago, when we had the Y2K scare. And I was freaked out. I thought it was the end of the world. I thought the elite were going to control the world and control me and change life as we know it. Now we know that since then that didn't really happen, and I really couldn't have controlled much even if it did happen. I can only hoard so much food if that's what I want to do. I can only plan so much, and unless I'm a billionaire that owns a grocery store in my house, I really can't do a whole lot. And so what I learned over the last few years is how to guard my mind and how to watch out for things that could potentially make my mind spiral out of control. And that's what we want to talk about today with the mental detox. What is it that is struggling you? What is it that's keeping you up at night? What is it that you worry about? And then watch and look at where it's coming from. Sometimes it's coming from too much of the news media. Yes, it's good to stay updated, but watching the news all day, every day probably isn't a good idea. Sometimes it comes from searching YouTube for conspiracy theories and crazy stuff. Sometimes that's too much, and it'll direct our mind in a way that we don't want to go. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how the alcoholic and non-alcoholic can benefit by doing a mental health detox. By going through and being at the door of your mind and understanding that what goes in is what comes out. When you fill your mind with things all day, every day, that's what you're going to get. Back when I was a preacher, I would fill my mind with Bible and conspiracy theories and all kinds of stuff. Guess what I ended up thinking about and worrying about all day? Yep, you're right, Bible stuff and conspiracy stuff. Then when I became an alcoholic and started to get sober, I consumed my mind with things that would help me get sober. Guess what I thought about all day, every day? Yep, you guessed it, recovery and alcoholism. And I started thinking about this all the time. When I was in active addiction, all I cared about was alcohol. What did I think about all day? Where to get the next drink. And so we see that being at the door of our mind and guarding our mind is very important. And that's why we're going to open up this dialogue to you guys today to help you understand what a mental detox is, how to be at the door of your mind and really help yourself with your mental health and clarity, especially when things go crazy, as we've been seeing lately. So welcome to the show. My name is Marcus. This is Terry. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, click the bell, and follow us because we have live shows each week here. And we also have live shows over at talksober.com during this tough time where lots of alcoholics can't find meetings. We want to reach out to you guys and give you guys an alternative where you can learn how to get and stay sober. So, Terry, how you doing? How's your mental health detox coming along?
I think I'm detoxed, and I try to stay mentally stable, and I try to keep my sobriety, and that's so far, I think I'm doing all right. I just want to say good morning to people. Good morning, Derek and Trevelyan and Ano and David and Ty, Yvonne, Megan, RVA, DAR, Drew. Good to see you all here. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. It looks like we got a lot more than that are watching that haven't commented. That's okay. No problem. And great to see lots of regulars back and the new faces. Awesome. And, you know, that's what Marcus is talking about. It's important. I had to, part of my recovery when I first got sober was first I had to get that physical dependency away, and then I had to work on my mental. That's the part that brings us back to drinking. That's where relapses come from, is that mental obsession. And we got to get those thoughts not necessarily out of our head, but we have to learn to control them. And there's lots of tools that you can use to do that. We're going to talk about that today.
Absolutely. And I remember a quote by Alan Watts, which I like a lot, which if you see the books on my bookshelf, I don't know how clear they are. I have a couple by him. And one of them is that he says, you can find something to worry about all the time if you're the worrying type. And I think it's very important to realize that that goes for everything in life. You can find something to think about all day long if you're the OCD type. And the mind wants to be active. It wants to think about things. And when we look at it, no matter what you're doing, whatever you're feeding your mind is what's going to focus on, right? Like if you have OCD and you think about cleanliness, maybe you're the type that is a germaphobe like me, and you go to the grocery store and you wash your hands 1,000 times and you wash your feet 1,000 times as if your feet touched anything. I hope you're not touching anything with your feet in the grocery store. That's another topic for another day. But we have to look at this and say, what is it that we're worried about? Right now, you're probably thinking about sickness and the economy and all these things. And we have to separate it and really look at what we control. I noticed that Drew says, you know, I lost my job and it screwed up my sobriety. I went back and I went to drinking. And we look at that and we have to isolate everything and take it in stride. And we have to say to ourselves, okay, I lost my job, what next? Well, you're probably going to get 100% unemployment. That's pretty much what I've been hearing coming out of the politician people. So we look at that and we're like, okay, well, we're going to be okay for a couple of months. That's going to be all right. And when we get sober, we learn that today and this hour and this moment is all that we have. And we learn that life is very fragile. I don't know what can happen. I'm a moderately healthy 40-year-old. I could get this. I have a history of asthma. I could worry about it. But I'm going to worry about that when I get to it. Because I can't control what happens in the future, but I can control what I do now. For example, you got 4 months of unemployment, full-time, like I think you get the full amount, which means you're probably going to be okay. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a politician. Maybe someone would vote for me. I don't know. I might get 2 votes. But we look at that and we're like, okay, so I'm going to be okay. Maybe I could take the next 3 or 4 months where I'm still getting paid to learn a new skill or to apply for new jobs or to fix it up to where it's like when I hit the ground running, when they open the gates of being able to be normal society again, maybe I'll be ready. I'll work on my resume, or I'll work on this, or I'll work on that. And focus on what we can control and don't focus on what we can't control. I can't control what happens out there in the world. I think we've all learned that throughout this pandemic issue. I think we've all learned that we can't control things. I can't even control like whether they say I could go outside my house and go to the Starbucks if that's what I like, or whether I go to work or whatever. So we can't really look at it. And we got to really focus and say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to focus? And what is it that's going to not help me? Well, I know for a fact I drank a lot of alcohol. And never once at the bottom of a bottle of alcohol did they offer me a new job. Never once. I never had that happen. It was never like, okay, tequila, you're done. Where's my paycheck? Never happened that way. Actually, I found out it was the opposite. And never, by watching and consuming a ton of news, did it ever make my situation better. I could read the headlines so I know what to do. Unfortunately, here in Florida, our governor is not a wise man, and he's not shutting us down. I can't control that. I gotta watch the news all day and be like, okay, when's he gonna say it? But until they release the order, I really can't do a whole lot. I could do my part. I could stay home. I could wash my hands. I can focus on my mental health. And I could listen to things and I can put in my brain something to counteract the bad stuff going on. Something to find my peace and serenity in the midst of all this stuff. Whether that's saying, hey, you know what? Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm not going to watch the TV. Every day, maybe I'll only say, I'm going to worry for 15 minutes. One of the keys is schedule a time to worry. Because if you don't schedule it, it's going to happen all day, every day. And say, you know what, for 15 minutes a day, yeah, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to watch the conspiracy theorists and I'm going to freak out for 15 minutes a day. Then when it's done, I'm going back to normal. And when we look at this, you are at the door of your mind and you are responsible for what you let in, and it's going to affect you. And we see now people are staying home. Luckily, my family and I've worked from home for 20 years. My wife has stayed home for the same time, and the kids have been home a lot. So it's not a whole lot different for us. But for a lot of people, this is changing the way you live. And I know there's a lot of single moms out there, a lot of families out there, and they got their kids, and it's like, what am I going to do cooped up with my kids in the house for 3 months, 4 months, right? And anyone who's ever had toddlers or a dog or anything, those things will drive you nuts, right? You're like, my dog's cute and cuddly and I get to hang out with him all day. And then, a couple of weeks into it, you're like, my dog's a freaking maniac and he should probably have Prozac. Disclaimer, that was a joke. Don't give your dog psychiatric drugs. But we got to look at this and we got to say, what are we going to do? How am I going to detox my mind? Yvonne says it's difficult not to worry when you have a child with asthma. Well, prepare. Look up things that are going to help. Focus on, getting the inhalers or whatever they need, and be ready to go to the doctor when you have to, if you have to. And again, one of the best things is self-isolate. I can't control what goes on out there, but I can control my little world to some extent. To some extent. There is some extent we can't. And, we look at it and we really notice in these times that every day of life is a gift. And sometimes we forget that because we're, oh man, I can't go do something. I can't go do this. I can't go do that. I can't go to work. I can't do this. But we realize that every minute's a gift. Cherish every minute. Look at every minute and say, what am I going to do? Am I going to spend my life worrying? Am I going to spend my life stressing out? Or am I going to be at the mental forefront and say, I'm going to detox from this. I'm going to take a break. Because worrying, as the Bible says, doesn't add 1 cubit to your stature. And it certainly doesn't. I worried a lot, and I'm still 5'1" on a good day with the right shoes. So it's not going to add any cubits, and you got to look at this and you got to focus. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, the mental detox, it comes from it comes from some basic things. Like, first of all, I had to start with my honesty and being open-minded to new ideas. And like you said, just worrying about the things that I have control over. And, in this present situation, we've been on lockdown today is day 11. And, those first couple days, I wasn't perfect, just like pretty much everybody around here. We weren't perfect. And then we realized that this is serious stuff. And for me, I just decided, okay, I'm going to do what I need to do. I made a huge store run. They didn't have toilet paper. Okay, whatever. I don't have control over that. But I made the store run, and I just take these precautions that I can take. While I'm here at home, my whole idea was, okay, I'm going to be on lockdown. I'm going to wake up every morning. I'm going to work out. I'm going to walk the dog, and then I'm going to be productive, work on the house, do paperwork, get a hold of people, da-da-da-da-da. I did some of it, but, I just really didn't try to worry about how much I got done right away. And I've slowly been getting into it. And now I'm kind of following what I want to do, but still I'm not that worried about it. If I don't get the exercise in that day, it's okay, or whatever. I get a little bit of exercise in, get a little work done on the house, get a little bit of paperwork done. It's all right. And that's the key. The other thing and I always say it, is gratitude. I'm so fortunate with being able to have a place to stay. And, I notice, let's see, I think it was Derek said that you've lost your job, and a lot of your friends have too, and I have too. And I'm in the hotel industry, in the restaurant. Man, when is that going to come back? They're going to let people go back to work. Our hotel isn't going to have any occupancy for months after people are allowed to go back to work. So when am I going to go back to work? I have no idea. I'm guessing, if I'm lucky, July or something like that. I know they've just today decided to close the schools until the beginning of May, and I would completely expect schools not to open again this year. And so that would probably mean the businesses are going to remain closed as well. And it's okay. I'm just going to do what I can do If I have to stay locked up in my house for a couple of months, okay. And what am I going to do? Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I don't have to go out and commingle with people, as try not to do that. So I'm going to make a huge store run again in maybe a couple of weeks or whatever. And I just try to plan accordingly. And planning helps me a lot, but also at the same time, I don't expect the results that I'm planning. I kind of do, but at the same time, it's okay if the results aren't exactly the way I want. I try not to trip over that, It's okay if things don't quite work out. And so far, trying to live my life this way, things have pretty much worked out. Not necessarily the way I wanted them to, but they've worked out okay. And I'm good. And another huge thing is the fact that, am I good right now? I'm fine. Everything's okay. Kind of going a little bit stir crazy already after day 11, and I'm sure we're going to be counting day 60 even soon enough. But it's all right. I have my family, and everybody's healthy, and that's huge. And that's all we got. We're all in this together. And I was leaving Costco the other day, and some lady was trying to cut in through the exit. And you're not supposed to go into the exit. You got to go get in line like everybody else, because they're only allowing 250 people in at a time. And she's getting all mad, and the guy is arguing with her while he's trying to check my receipt. And he's like, "I'm really sorry, man." I'm like, "Dude, it's okay. No problem. We're all in this together." And with her, I don't know what her deal is. Maybe she has kids in the car. She didn't want to leave them in the car for very long or something like that. And it's okay. I would have been okay, but he made her follow the rules, but whatever. So I just try to look at things from other people's perspective, people that might be having a difficult time, and try to just be more loving and tolerant of people. And that seems to help a lot as well.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, too, because when you look at things from other people's perspective, you realize that we're all in this together. You realize that all of humanity has lost